The incredibly talented sprinter miler Artorius has completed his first season at Newgate, covering just under 150 mares. Got great support from terrific breeders with unbelievable fertility. And today, as he rolls, or as we lead into his second season at stud, we're really pleased to be joined by his trainers, Anthony and Sam Freedman, joining myself and Henry to talk through, just recapping the Artorius story as we build into an important second season for this awesome racehorse and pretty special, unique horse. Guys, I was going to kick off just by running through his race record, just to recap it for everyone, because it's just, when you go back through it, it was for the elite class he showed early, for the longevity, for the places he travelled, the different states, the different countries, for the forces he beat and competed against in his racing style. Now, we'll kick off in the Blue Diamond, where he comes from ninth at the 400 metre mark to beat ingratiating Animo in the Blue Diamond. Let's go to the Golden Slipper, where he runs sixth. He was 15th at the 400 metre mark, runs sixth to stay inside, flying home. As a 3-year-old, the Golden Rose, he's fourth behind In the Congo, 11th at the 400 metre mark, again flashing home. Caulfield Guinea's third behind Animo, 11th at the 400 metre mark. In the Coolmore, third flashing home, 13th at the 400 metre mark behind Home Affairs, who won that day. The Newmarket, 17th at the 400 metre mark, runs sixth. You take him to England, third in the Platinum Jubilee, third in the July Cup. He goes to France for the Marie de Geest. He comes back, beats Imperatriz in the Canterbury Stakes. Unbelievable performance in that race. He's 7th at the 400 metre mark. And again, behind Animo in the George Ryder, where he's 7th at the 400 metre mark, flying home. Fangirl second, again, huge run before he goes back to England. So unbelievable when you get the retrospective context of the horses around him, where he went to. Anthony, I was looking through your profile, 35 plus years of training now, been around 125 Group 1 winners. So you've been surrounded by a lot of good horses, but does Artorius remind you of anything you've been around in the past, or is he just sort of on his box on his own somewhere?
Well, look, he's a very special horse, particularly to Sam and I, because it's very rare that you buy a yearling at races at the highest level and then becomes a stallion. It's very hard to do. And when you read out his record, it's he was surrounded by the best horses in the last 5 to 7 years, whatever. Raced at the highest level. I don't think we were ever disappointed with him, not once. And I think he's very underrated. I think people should give the horse due credit for what he was. And I think he capped it off with the victory over Imperatriz, which, as we've all seen, is pretty hard to do. So it doesn't surprise me that he was well supported, and I'll be very keen to buy a couple of them first season for sure.
Yeah, and Sam, you started the partnership with your father, Anthony, in the start of the 2021 season, and this yearling was a horse that you selected, your team selected at the Magic Millions sale in 2020. Talk us through what you remember of actually going in there and buying it.
Oh, he's passed in the Vinery draft, and I remember we're sitting at the table. Dad always goes through all the pass-ins whenever we have a quiet spell of not buying horses, and then we go out and have a look at a few. So that was pretty typical. We went out and had a look at him. He wasn't an obvious horse, but Dad saw something, and credit to him. The horse went out for a break, came back in. His first prep back in work was, once he'd been broken in and everything, he was a completely different horse to what he looked like at the sales. So, and his work was always funny, like early on, much like his racing style, sort of nonchalant, went about his business pretty casually, but conserved his energy pretty well for race day.
It's an interesting point about him, like he's developed into a lovely horse. Do you remember, outside of the fact that you could see him furnishing, what about him that it grabbed your attention? Was there anything in particular?
Bit of a funny story. I thought he looked like Flying Artie as a yearling, and that swayed me. And fortunately, that's what I went with. I saw Mick Price a couple of years later. I said, "Does he look like Flying Artie?" He said, "No, not at all." But, I probably, I thought he had a really good pedigree.
Yes.
And I just knew he would look completely different. I'm sure he looks even different now, a year on. Those horses slip through the cracks very quickly.
Yes. Because he's got a massive pedigree, hasn't he, Bruce? It's a huge Greg Perry pedigree.
Southport Tycoons come out of it again. They're just out of the Reduced Choice mare, out of More Than Ready mare. I
think the other thing too for us, his temperament was amazing. You can't travel those colts if they've got a bad temperament.
Yeah.
And he travelled twice. He travelled all through Europe, and never turned a hair. Just took it all in his stride. And
what do you say about horses? Like a horse like him, he's a rarity in this day and age that campaigned at Group 1 level as a 2-year-old, as a 3-year-old, and as a 4-year-old. You know, it's a very different ballgame to how it probably was when you started training. Where horses had longevity. He certainly had longevity at the highest level.
Yeah, he did. I don't think he ever ran in much other than a group race. Certainly not after his maiden, maybe his second race. But and as Sam said, very, very nonchalant, laid-back sort of horse. I'm sure he's the same at the stud now. Just nothing phases him. But an electric turn of foot, to pick up Imperatriz is no mean feat. And I don't think she had an off day. I think she was there to win, and he grabbed her.
We'll go just quickly on his two-year-old season. For the public, he probably was pretty obvious, right? His jump out was nice. He had really good on debut, then won at Sandown by 5. You're rolling in the Blue Diamond. It's a race you've won the last 3 of the last 6 years, right? You've been very strong. You've been incredibly good at getting your 2-year-olds ready for that race. How confident were you, Anthony, with him on that day, given Animo was in the field, etc.?
Yeah, look, he was going into it. He was the only horse that had won at 1200 or beyond. There was a lot of speed in the race, and a lot of that speed was going to be suspect late, and we rode to that effect, and it proved correct. I think we knew wherever he was at the furlong, he'd finish hard, and if he was close enough, he could certainly be the horse, that could get home and win. So, those horses are hard to be confident about because they get back and they need luck and all that sort of thing. And we saw that with him through his career. He didn't always get the rub of the green, but when it worked out for him, there was not many horses better than him, to be honest. I mean, arguably he was unlucky at Ascot the first year. I thought he was, the Newmarket run was fantastic. A good mare beat him. It was, he was a funny horse. He had to be held up. He had to be smothered away. And the later he got out, the bigger his finish was. And we ran him at Flemington early in his career. I think he started very short price, but it was only a field of 6 or 7. He ended up exposed a long way out and looked plain. But we then worked out that, as I said, the more he was almost unlucky, the bigger his finish would be. And I think people forget too, he ran third in a very good Guineas to what proved to be a champion. And then we freshened him up and ran enormous at 1,200 metres. Now, there's not many horses can do that. It's full stop. So I think he was very versatile. And I love turn of foot in stallions. They have to have it in this country, and he had it.
Mm-hmm. The only time he was disappointing was that Flemington run, and I reckon that was one of his only races where they went steady. France as well. Anytime they went steady in his race, where it was tactical or suited a horse up on the speed, he couldn't get near them. But I think every time you put him in a genuinely run race in a big field where you get the best athlete, that's when he tended to produce his best.
Bigger the race, bigger the field, the better he was.
Bigger the occasion, yeah.
Yeah.
And Sam, you travel with that horse a lot, right? Was there any particular moment or race or the one that got away or special moment where you thought, wow, I'm proud of this horse today? Was there anything in particular? Oh, you were pretty close to that horse, weren't you?
Yeah, that first year probably at Ascot was the one that,
I remember.
that hurt.
Yeah, that did hurt.
That hurt. He was, he rode him really well to instructions and got everything, just that little check, which I replay in my own mind.
Interesting.
At the 50 metre mark, where I think if he'd got through and not copped that little knock, he would have gone mighty close. So it gives you that desire that you want to go back and do it again. And we tried to do it again, and he was brave again, but that was sort of the one that really hurt. But it was a great experience.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, if you had a one at Ascot that day, if he was probably as good a thing beaten as you'd ever see, and if you had a one at Ascot that day in the Platinum Jubilee, he might have been retired, and and the guys, the ownership group, we all got so much enjoyment racing the horse on. Like, we love racing stallions on when we can, because I just think in this day and age it's so important to see versatility and toughness in stallions, and then for him to come back and have that great 4-year-old season, blousing Imperatriz at weight for age in a Group 1 sprint in Sydney, to me that was, it was, everything happens for a reason, I suppose. That's how I would see it, and but he surely was unlucky that day at Royal Ascot.
Just on that, like, you only really recognise his form in hindsight, when Imperatriz comes out and wins 8 Group 1s in a row, whatever it is, and he beats her at weight for age, and the 3-year-old beats her this year with no weight on his back. That day he beat her fair and square.
Sure.
I'll end with UH. So we had so much fun with them in the China Newgate colours.
Yep.
You bought into them after the Blue Diamond.
Yep.
Talk us through your decision making then. I mean, there's been Blue Diamond winners in the past that we've had chances to buy and we haven't pushed play on. What, you pushed the button on him?
Well, I think, that at the time, there was very, very good word around that Animo was a top class horse, and it turned out that was correct. A lot of good judges and form analysts had that horse marked very well, and he, when it came down to the Blue Diamond, the pair of them lined up, went to the post, and he just out sprinted it, and he sprinted a champion, and I thought, well, there's a horse that's he hasn't just won a Blue Diamond. He's won probably a very, very good Blue Diamond. That's why we went in and bought the horse, and he was an expensive horse, but as the guy said, he didn't let us down. He's got a huge pedigree. He's furnished into the most beautiful horse, and for me to get an proper elite sprinting Australian horse that could do it at the highest level at 2, 3, and 4 and retire sound, clean-winded, to get an elite horse like him, they're the ones that make elite stallions, and I think he's. Yeah, you made the point he's underrated, Anthony. And I sort of feel he is. I feel like...
Look, I think, there's been Blue Diamond winners, but I don't see him as a Blue Diamond winner. I see him as a lot more than that. He's run third in a very, very good Caulfield Guineas. He's run third in a very good Coolmore. That's... He's got a huge body of work. He's not just a one-hit, Blue Diamond winner. And that's... I think people need to give him the credit that he's due.
Yeah, no, some consistency at the elite level is unbelievable. He has received 146 really nice mares first season in the back.
Got a great libido.
Great shareholder report. Shareholder support. His fertility is he is the best in the shed by unbelievable.
Do you know we discussed, we spoke about, I had concerns over what his libido would be like because he was the most... Interesting. He used to follow a filly out as a 2 and 3-year-old.
Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, he was never really interested.
Never ever showed interest.
It's always a quiet one,
I tell you, there'd be very few more fertile and better horses in the shed in the Hunter Valley than Artorius.
And knowing the horse, I think he'd have, whatever you put up to him, multiple coverings a day, he wouldn't bat an eyelid because he doesn't. He's so laid back that it'd just be, this is what I do. Yeah. And if you put a task in front of that horse, he'd always deliver.
Yeah. Very much looking forward to his first foals this spring. Anthony, Sam, thanks so much for your time, mate.
Cheers.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, guys.